SEPTA funding and vacant land. These are two perennial issues in our city that don't seem directly related. But the transit agency that runs our public buses and subway system is hoping to boost ridership by building on undeveloped land near its stations, and will hopefully make some money in that process. With mixed-use development already in the works near 4 stations, could this get SEPTA the cash influx it's been looking for? It's Thursday, July 8th. I'm Abby Fritz, filling in for Trinary, and here's what we know about SEPTA's landlord era. Molly McVety, staff writer at PhillyVoice, thank you so much for being on CityCast Philly.
Thank you so much for having me, Abby. It's good to be here.
So there's a vacant lot near the Regional Rail Germantown station, right? SEPTA owns it, and it's been empty for like 20 years. But now the transit agency is making moves to develop this land. What are they going to do with it?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? SEPTA has put this plan out. They started the process sort of 2024, 2025 to add basically mixed use development. So commercial space, residential space, and some open areas as well, just sort of around the station. And since they own the land, the kind of goal, right, is that they'll generate some more revenue that doesn't just come from the fare box. So, which I think we can all agree SEPTA needs.
Definitely. Yeah.
So that is what they are proposing. Now, what that will actually look like in practice could vary, which is sort of, I think, what we're going to talk about a little bit today.
Wait, does that mean SEPTA is going to be a landlord?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Although the idea is enticing, if not scary. How they are wording it, and they've been doing similar agreements with other areas that they own, but they're basically entering a joint development partnership with developers who would act as a landlord, so to speak. So SEPTA's the landowner. They're not going to be, I would not be paying my rent to SEPTA, but they are going to be leasing out the land to developers who will pay out to SEPTA. And I mean, some of the other contracts they've gotten into in Ambler and Conshohocken, they run up hundreds of millions of dollars. So, SEPTA does stand to gain something from this, just not necessarily your rent.
Okay, so I mean, it wouldn't be the individuals paying SEPTA. It would be the individuals paying the developers and the developers paying SEPTA.
Yes.
What it sounds like. Okay. So quasi-landlord.
Yeah, kind of. You're not paying Scott Sauer a check if you're living there, but it gets there somehow.
Right. And Scott Sauer is the general manager of SEPTA. Well, that's interesting because, I mean, you already kind of alluded to this, but it's not a secret that SEPTA has had issues with funding in the past. Last year, when the budget was 135 days late, the agency went into what people were calling a death spiral that almost resulted in drastic service cuts and fare hikes. And the split legislature in the state does not help. It is hard to secure funding from lawmakers. And last year, even when the state passed a budget, SEPTA had to dip into capital funds, which are usually used to fix equipment or do upgrades and stuff like that. And that money was just going to be going towards operational costs. So not great. Is SEPTA kind of banking on these developments to be a potential long-term solution to funding for them?
Yeah, I mean, in no uncertain terms, I think that they are sort of banking on this in a way. It's obviously not their only source of revenue or their only hope or effort that they're putting in, but, they hear a lot, like you said, from legislators about, responsible fiscal management, responsible financial management. And I think this is their idea of sort of maximizing the properties that they have, getting more people to use transit in the process, and also sort of investing in their communities a little bit more as well, taking their inputs into account, when it's done responsibly, it is sort of a win-win on both sides. But yeah, this is definitely something that I don't want to say that they need, but they're excited about pursuing, especially looking at their tumultuous past with their finances.
So let's go back to Germantown specifically. They're looking to develop that land. They're thinking probably some sort of mixed use development, something with apartments. Will these apartments be affordable?
Hopefully. SEPTA has basically put in their proposal that they want the residential component or the residential, buildings to have a strong affordability component. That's the wording that they used. Now, in the step that they took last month to kind of put out this request for information, part of the thing that they're asking developers is what could that feasibly look like? Like, what could an affordability level be while still, being manageable for both the developer and for SEPTA as well? Mm-hmm. So there is supposedly going to be a strong affordability element here. And when they were doing public outreach in Germantown before, they sort of started moving forward with the process, that was one of the major things that residents sort of flagged was, need more housing, need more affordable housing. Mm-hmm. So it remains to be seen what that will look like. But so far, it looks like they're heading in that direction.
It's at least on the wish list. Okay.
Yes, it's on the wish list.
How do neighbors in Germantown feel about this? You just mentioned that before they put out the RFI that they were talking to people. So what are neighbors saying?
Yeah, so basically, I think there were a couple of sessions last year, just public information sessions about what SEPTA, sort of visualizes for the space. I mean, the specific area that they're looking at, I think, is around 62,000 square feet. It covers both sides of Germantown Station. So there is a sizable amount of property that they, or a sizable amount of land that they're able to work with here. Not all of it can technically be developed, but
okay.
That's just sort of getting in the nitty-gritty of it. Mm-hmm. But at these public information sessions, which if you've ever been to a public information session, they basically look like poster boards with renderings or general concepts of what SEPTA is thinking here, and residents get a chance to, with Post-it notes or online forums to just sort of say what they think about it, what they want to include, what they want to take out, things like that. Mm-hmm. So from my understanding, the public information sessions were very popular or, very well attended. And like I sort of mentioned earlier, I think two of the big asks were affordable housing and open space. So, better pedestrian walkways, more like green areas where people can gather and get around safely. So I think those are just like the main asks from the residents so far.
From the Germantown neighborhood. All right, we have more on SEPTA's Landlord arc after this break. I was honestly kind of surprised when I first read your story. It had never crossed my mind that the same agency that runs my bus could also develop land, Is this common in other cities?
Yes, this is common in other cities. I mean, there's examples. I mean, every city does it a little bit differently, but there are examples in Chicago, Salt Lake City, LA, the Bay Area, Pittsburgh. And I mean, Atlanta did something sort of similar where they were incentivizing soccer field development along the train lines. So it doesn't always have to just look like housing and commercial space. But yeah, this is definitely a really popular idea that is replicated around the country. Like I sort of alluded to earlier, it's a reliable way for transit authorities, transit agencies to generate revenue that they otherwise wouldn't, and relying on fares, especially post-COVID, has not necessarily been a winning strategy, as we can kind of see and attest to here in Philly. But yeah, so Philly or city council put forward last month a bill that basically encouraged this type of development in city proper. The reason it's a little bit different is because one doesn't only just apply to SEPTA, it could apply to PATCO, and not just rail stops, but bus stops, even like water taxis, I think were involved.
Yes.
So it's a little different in that case. And council members have to approve of where the development goes. So it's a little bit different. And obviously what we're talking about is regional rail right now. So and a lot of the city's new legislation is focused around like the L and even some parts of the North Broad Street line. So, this is something that SEPTA is really pushing for and is, and they stand to, like I said, sort of gain a good amount from it. And you can't have mass transportation without the masses. So you got to find the masses.
And that law you're talking about, it specifically is meant to incentivize developers to build near transit.
Yeah.
Like in this case, let's say a developer not affiliated with any of SEPTA's properties were to build close to SEPTA, close to like an L stop or something. I mean, SEPTA does stand to benefit from that because, I mean, when you build around transit, ideally people will then use it.
Yeah.
So that is like the increase in fare revenue side of this. But what SEPTA's doing with these developments is more so like diversifying their portfolio to generate a different type of income other than fare. And then maybe they get the benefit of, okay, we built so close to this station in Germantown.
Right.
People will ideally use it who move in.
Exactly. And from what it seems like, what they've sort of targeted so far with Germantown, Ambler, and even Langhorne, they're targeting places with relatively robust, demand for transit already. Ambler is a pretty popular regional rail destination. Germantown's a pretty popular regional rail destination. So, they're trying to meet people where they are and also just sort of, make it a kind of a win-win in that way.
Absolutely. This isn't just happening in Germantown. It's also Langhorne and Ambler. So are there any other properties in their portfolio that they're looking to develop at this time?
Yes. Right now, SEPTA is focused on mainly 4 spots. So Germantown, Ambler, Langhorne, and Conshohocken. So I would say that Ambler and Conshohocken they're a little further into the process. So we can maybe get a glimpse as to like how the Germantown development saga may play out. They selected a developer for both Conshohocken and Ambler, and respectively, the contracts are like $333 million and $236 million.
That's the money that SEPTA stands to make off of that, or that's how much they have to pay?
So that's the money that SEPTA would receive from the developers who are leasing out their land. So in Ambler, that contract is worth $236 million over, the lifetime of the contract. And in Conshohocken, it's worth $333 million over the life of the contract. So that's what SEPTA would get paid from the developers.
That's a significant amount of money to add to SEPTA's budget.
Certainly is. So Germantown, obviously, we're in the RFI stage, which is just seeing what developers think of the plan, any general ideas or concerns they have about the site or the plan. And then in Langhorne, they're a little bit behind the process. They're just starting to they're in like the concept development phase. So a little earlier on in the stage. But those are the 4 main projects that are ongoing right now. But, when I've talked to SEPTA, this is something that they have told me that they, are excited about and they want to replicate it across more areas as, part of their program. So stay on the lookout, I guess.
Where do you think they should develop next? Is there anywhere, that screams it needs more housing, it needs more affordable housing? There's a lot of transit users.
You know what? I use the Broad Street line every day. I haven't used regional rail in I don't know how long.
It's okay.
So I can't answer that.
Totally.
But
Totally.
you know what? My parents live in Downingtown, so
Why
kidding.
not? Well, and it's interesting. It sounds like a lot of these, 3 of these developments that they're doing right now are in the suburbs. So,
yeah.
And I know this is centered around regional rail right now, but will we see this, come more to the city center, come to parts of the Northeast? I feel like there's places, out west, like past 50th.
Yeah.
Is this something that could be replicated closer to home?
Yeah, I mean, presumably that's what city council wants, right? Like with the legislation, they were specifically incentivizing development around L stops west of Penn, and then some areas like No Libs, Fishtown, Kensington. So basically the regions that you were kind of talking about, West Philly, Northeast, like they are specifically incentivizing those areas. It's just, again, like not as far along in the process as some of the regional rail spots so far.
Interesting. So SEPTA isn't going to be running these mixed-use developments. So they stand to gain more so than like investing money because they already own these properties, right? These have been vacant lots that have sat for a long time.
Right.
And now they are going to developers to build on them essentially and run these mixed-use developments.
Yes, exactly. And that's part of what the most recent development was about, which was they're asking developers like, how much would this cost or how long would this take if you were to follow through with this plan or, add some elements of your own. So again, very early on in the process, they told me they're hoping to have some more progress with the RFPs, which is requests for proposals, which are a little bit more concrete and solidified and kind of directly lead to choosing a developer. They're hoping to get that process underway by fall or winter of this year. So again, these things take time. So it's not necessarily a given how much these things will cost, how long these things will take. But that is that's sort of why SEPTA is going about it this way, just to weigh their options and, see what it could look like.
Yeah, get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
No one's moving into these this year.
No one's moving into these this year and probably not next year, but one day.
All right, Molly McVety, staff writer at PhillyVoice, thank you so much for being on CityCast Philly.
Thanks, Abby.
You can read Molly's full story on PhillyVoice. We've got a link in the show notes. That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. If you wouldn't mind SEPTA being your landlord, send this episode to a friend who you think would agree. Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. And don't forget, you can support this show and get some great perks by becoming a CityCast Philly neighbor. We've got a link in the show notes to join. We're going to be back tomorrow morning with the Friday News Roundup. Tune in. Bye.